And as if that isn't enough, there's a constant threat of rain sending flash floods through the gully, trapping anyone who ventures down. Only once has a successful descent been made, and that took a large group of climbers leaving fixed ropes behind them so they could turn back if the weather changed. Now Carl Willems and a small band of Flemish canyoneers plan to descend Lowe's Gully, taking their ropes with them. For Carl, there's no going back.
I'm Carl Willems. I live in Ghent and I've been doing canyoning since 7-8 years now.
Canyoning is climbing with a difference. The difference is water.
I got into canyoning after a few years of caving. We descended some waterfalls and it was like big fun.
But Lowe's Gully has over 40 waterfalls, some up to 60 metres, nearly 200 feet high. No wonder it's the canyoneer's equivalent of Everest. Harder than anything Carl's attempted before.
I never thought about going to Borneo. I sometimes go to France and to Italy and to England, but Borneo was like the other end of the world. But after a few days, okay, why not?
The expedition has been planned by Paul Simons, a legend in the world of canyoning with over 300 descents to his name.
In a cave, you don't want to go into the water, but in canyoning, you want to go, you descend in the water, and that makes it completely different. It's kind of a kick. Lowe's Gully is for me the most exciting place for a canyonist, but for most canyoneers, I think it's much too dangerous.
Paul knows those dangers only too well. 3 years ago he was trapped in the gully when heavy rain sent a torrent of water thundering through. He was pulled out by helicopter, leaving all his gear behind. Now it's payback time. Their starting point is Melenkap Kappa, a small village at the foot of Mount Kinabalu. For safety's sake, they will tackle Lowe's Gully in 2 groups. The main group, led by Carl, will head straight for the top of the gully to begin their descent. Paul's group will first recce the escape route from the bottom of the gully. Then, 2 days later, they'll follow Carl up the mountain. If things go wrong, Paul will have to rescue the others. There's a well-marked trail for Carl to follow up Kinabalu, but getting to the start of the canyon is still a day's climb to 12,000 feet, 3,600 metres.
We're on the way up Mount Kinabalu. Behind me is the donkey's ears.
Finally, they make it to the ridge, but thick clouds hide their first view into the canyon. It brings home to Ozzy, the oldest member of Carl's group, the scale of the challenge ahead.
You leave the civilized world and you are coming in a different world. You can often not see the bottom of the canyon. There are clouds in the canyon, so it's a very impressive landscape.
They'll camp here for the night and hope it isn't raining in the morning.
It's 7 a.m, the sun's just risen, and we're ready for our descent.
When we were going into the canyon, I was afraid. I was even a little bit terrified, because I have read about all the other expeditions, and I knew that none of these expeditions succeeded, and now we were going in ourselves. So, yes, you can understand that I was a little bit afraid.
And well might he be afraid. They'll need several days without rain to make their descent. But the weather here is notoriously unpredictable. And when it rains a lot. Over 100 inches or 260 centimetres a year. It can go from a trickle to a torrent in a few minutes. The top of the canyon is called Easy Valley. It's anything but easy. Falling earth and thick vegetation hinder their progress. Rattan vines tear at their limbs. They're entering a wilderness untouched by human civilization.
If you go on an expedition like that, you never know what's going to happen. So you take some special things, like for instance, like a power drill. When you're at the top of a waterfall and there is nothing to attach your rope to, then you have to drill the holes where to put your anchors in. Also, we took very lightweight material. You know, we have to carry it all on our back, so you want to have the best material you have.
Travelling light means they're carrying just a few hundred metres of rope. After each descent, they have to pull their ropes through. The only way out now is down.
The hardest part of the descent was the first moment we had to pull our rope through. This was the part of no return. I knew that here there is only one way. There is only one way down. We can't go back anymore. So this was very hard for me.
But getting down the gully is only part of the challenge. 3,000 metres below, where it reaches the Panataran River, there's thick jungle. To ensure Carl can find the way out, Paul's leading a small party taking GPS readings of the escape route. He'll then leave the directions for the others to find. Down here, it's hot and humid.
It was a trail of about 9 kilometers. We just came from the plane, we were tired. It took us about 11 hours to make the trail. We had to climb 1,400 meters, that's 4,000 feet. We had to go down 800 meters. Very wet, very slippery. We had our backpacks, 20 kilo, so very hard, very hard.
And this is the easy way to the bottom of Lowe's Gully. They leave the directions out of the jungle in a water bottle for Carl and double back to Maleng Kap Kappa. Tomorrow they'll take the Kinabalu Trail to the top of the gully. High above, Carl's group are edging carefully down the canyon. The rocks here are treacherous, worn smooth by the water and covered in moss. A sudden lapse of concentration could mean a bruising fall. Each of them is carrying over 20 kilos of equipment and food, enough to survive on for a week should the weather turn. But it's exhausting work and a relief when they find a flat area on which to make camp.
One of the best moments was the first evening when we were in the gully. All the hammocks were attached. We were eating and I looked around and I saw all the happy faces. Everything was coming together very nice.
Having checked out the escape route from the bottom of the gully, Paul and two friends retraced their steps to Maleng Kap Kappa. Now they're following Carl's route to the canyon. As they ascend the eerie mountain, the mist swallows them up. Visibility is soon down to a few meters. Their big worry is that this could turn to rain, flooding the gully. If that happens, they'll have to rescue the others. The effort of their climb is rewarded by clear sunlight and a breathtaking view of the clouds over Mount Kinabalu National Park.
You see Mount Kinabalu. It's a mountain of 4,000 meters high, and every year 30,000 people, 40,000 people reaches the top. But only a few look further and they see the gully and they get excited when they think about going down into the gully. But that's what we did.
Below, Carl and the others get into their special lightweight wetsuits. As the gully descends, it narrows until it's only a few meters wide, and the only way through is to swim. But the water is icy cold. It's a good thing their packs are waterproof.
It looks quite pleasant and nice and easy, but you have to remember that when you're there, circumstances can change immediately. In a wink, there can be heavy rains. We can go from like a funny waterfall into a torrent of water coming at us. So this you have to keep in mind.
At the moment, there's less than 100 litres a second of water passing down the gully. In heavy rain, that rapidly rises to 900 litres a second. They'd be swept over the waterfalls, unable to hang on. They push on as quickly as they can.
I was always thinking about what could go wrong. If you're in there and you break a leg, or someone of the team breaks a leg or breaks some minor injury, can have really big consequences there, because there is almost no escape from this gully.
Ozzy keeps track of their progress via GPS. However, deep in the gully, it's not always possible to get a reading. As they set up camp for the night, they hope their site is high enough not to get flooded if it rains. High above them, and just a short way into the gully, experienced canyoneer Paul Simons is fighting his way through thick foliage. The sheer walls of Kinabalu tower over 2,000 feet, 600 metres above them, as they lower themselves into the abyss.
Ja, de eerste echte afdaling.
As thick cloud descends, they grow increasingly concerned about the weather. Paul had to abandon his last attempt on the gully 3 years before, when heavy rain turned it into an impassable torrent. The next day, Carl and the lead group are making good progress through a series of steep waterfalls. They can enjoy playing in the water, well aware that they're lucky. Normally, these waterfalls would be playing with them. After 4 days, they come to the biggest obstacle in the gully, a 60-metre sheer drop called the Cathedral. They'll be drawing on all their skill and concentration as they lower themselves into the chasm below. Nine canyoneers from Belgium are making the most of a window of dry weather to descend Borneo's infamous Lowe's Gully. Carl Wilhelms and the lead group have just reached a 60-metre sheer drop called the Cathedral.
When we arrived finally at the last abseil, the Cathedral, it was quite an impressive waterfall because all the water goes through a narrow hole and it falls like 60 meters and there is a lot of noise there. But at the same time we knew exactly where we were and we knew, okay, this is the last waterfall. In 1 hour we are like at the Penataran and it will be all over. So we enjoyed it, we were laughing and we were cheering and it was incredible this moment.
Safely down, they think the end is in sight. They've made it! The first people to descend the deadly Lowe's Gully without leaving a trail of fixed ropes behind them.
Een jaar voorbereiding, een stevige ploeg.
A year's preparation, a strong team and a bit of luck with the weather seems to be the formula for a successful descent of Lowe's Gully.
Geslaagde afdaling van Lowe's Gully en canyontechniek.
Amazed that their luck has held, they find the directions and GPS readings left by Paul a few days before, detailing the escape route. Spirits high, they think it won't be long before they're out of the jungle. What they don't realise is that for some of them, their troubles have only just begun. With one group through safely, the second group, led by Paul Simons, are now alone in the gully. This vast pile of boulders is the result of a huge glacier that flowed down Kinabalu millions of years ago. When the ice melted, Lowe's Gully was born. Today, landslides caused by the frequent rains add to the debris. It's difficult going. To make things worse, they've strayed into a section of dense vegetation. Branches tear at their clothing as they push their way through. Then Paul discovers a reminder of his last visit to the gully. They've found Battleship Cave, from where he was helicoptered out. He's been waiting 3 years to see what lies below this point.
When the helicopter came, the pilot says, "We are going to pick up the person, but you have to let your gear over there." So it was very surprising that everything was still at the same place. It was good to see your equipment there.
They set up camp and hope the weather will hold. Whilst Paul is still high up in the gully, Carl and the lead group have completed their descent and reached the jungle. They're looking forward to resting. It's only 9 kilometers. They think they'll be out in a few hours.
We should see Melanka Kappa in a couple of hours.
But it's taking much longer.
When we made it to the Panatern River, we were very happy that we made it, but we didn't really made it at that moment. We had to do a very rough trip through the jungle with steep slopes, and I didn't count on it.
For Ozzy, the oldest person here, the stifling heat is getting too much.
We walked for a whole day. For me it was the roughest part of the whole trip.
And it's not just the heat that's the problem. Leeches looking for a feast. They can consume up to 5 times their own body weight before simply dropping off. They take a moment to get their breath back and give Ozzy a chance to catch up.
Ozzy!
Bij dat Ozzy de rest.
Ja? Zit u. Leg u.
When they reach a river, Ozzy takes the opportunity to cool down. That same day, after a quick bath, Paul and his 2 companions head off, hoping to make it out.
Om nat te worden.
There's only one way to cross these deep pools. Paul's amazed the water's still this low. So far, his luck has held.
Zet de camera in zicht.
The Panataran is in sight, only 300 metres away. First though, they have to rappel down the cathedral, the most difficult descent in the whole gully. A moment's lapse of concentration here could still be fatal. Paul watches nervously as Dave descends. The water splashing down is very disorientating, and for a tense moment, Dave seems to be stuck. But eventually, he reaches the bottom. He's okay.
Sta hier op 100 meter van de uitgang.
They've done it. Both groups, 9 men in all, have successfully conquered one of the steepest gullies in the world.
When we reached the Panataran, I said, it's a pity that it's finished already. It was so beautiful. It took us 3 days, but it was over too fast.
Carl and the others finally emerge from the jungle. Ozzy is particularly glad to be out of the wilderness. Just a few hours later, the weather breaks, bringing home to the guys how lucky they've been. As they go to collect their ropes from the top, they watch the water rushing into the gully. If they were down there now, they'd have no chance.
We didn't take our time to enjoy every moment because we were a little bit tense, but of course we couldn't go back at that moment. We will go back.